doing out there? It is Saturday morning, and I don't know what I want to talk about today. Obviously, you can see, if I don't cover the camera up with my thumb, there's all kinds of stuff on this back wall here. And I thought it might be fun, and besides making you seasick with the camera, it might be fun to reach up here and bring down one at a time some of my Kit Bashed channel name, Kit Basher, hey, yeah, Kit Bashed lightsabers. Let's take one down. I'll show you the first one that's actually, it's not, no battery in it, but this one has a blade. And I've been working on this since 2006. The kit came in 2006 with the blade. I have probably made several different versions of my hilt over the years, and this is so far like the most deluxe, complex, weird grip setup. But this particular kit does not have a soundboard. It is only like a 5-watt LED, I think, 5 or 6 watt. I really don't remember. I got it from the lightsaber guys here in Michigan. What the heck's their name? I think they're in Michigan still. The saber, custom saber shop. I got the kit from. And when I asked them about the wattage of it, about getting the butt end of it for sound and everything, the kit was so old they really didn't even remember. They didn't remember selling it to me or what part it was because it's so outdated now. It's strange to think of that being outdated, but it is. So, I mean, eventually I want to open this back section up where the battery compartment is and replace that with a better compartment that has like a soundboard at the end, and then I'll just maybe lighten this up so it reverberates the sound a little better. Yeah, that one's all completely built by hand. Everything on there is custom cut by hand with Dremel, little metal saws, and mostly Dremel and some filing, but a lot of hand workmanship, a lot of sanding, a lot of filing and fine cutting and stuff. And then found objects, of course, but I'll put that back up on the wall. I'm going to grab a couple of the first ones I made years ago. These are from like, I think 1999. I'm missing the butt end of this. It's on another saber for some reason. It's just kind of hanging there. But this is my vacuum cleaner hose and dowel rod PVC pipe version of Obi-Wan's saber from Phantom Menace. I should reach up here and get the butt end of it so you can see how I made that. It's very simple. I took, oh, not really simple. It's just like a wooden doohickey with some Allen wrench bolts to get that detail. Yeah, looks pretty sci-fi already, don't it? And then I just drilled straight through this thing, and it's a flat spot on the bottom of it already. Painted it black and put those things in there, and then basically it's supposed to screw into the end of this, but I've put this longer threaded bolt in here because I'm using it for a different one. I'm going to remake the butt end of this eventually. So that was my Obi-Wan. Very crude, but my friend Billy wore that on a gig back in '99 when the movie came out. It was pretty ridiculous. I think the drummer was dressed like Darth Maul. I, of course, the long hair and the goatee at the time. I had my Qui-Gon Jinn. My lovely mom made us some Jedi tunics, so I had a Qui-Gon tunic, and Billy had his Obi-Wan tunic, and this was my lightsaber hilt that hung off of my belt. All some found object parts that would just happen to be laying around in parts bins, junk box, and yeah, it's very crude, but it does, you can't tell that that's all PVC. It does kind of look a little bit metallic. So, you know, it did the job. And there was some cute girls at the show, and they're like, "Can I touch your lightsaber?" And I said, "Of course you can." That was when I learned that not all Star Wars nerds are dudes. Some of them wear skirts. Now, let's go to some that are a little more developed. Let's see here. The tricky part is I gotta hang that on a wall. Here's one right next to it that's very recent. This one's kind of, it's all like flashlights and curling irons and PVC pipe and some oddball things. They're all ordinary objects, all bashed together with a D-ring on the handle and some wiper blades glued to that, and one of them's actually fallen off, and I'm just gonna leave it like that because I just think it looks weathered and worn like this. It just looks, yeah, it literally looks like something some outcast after the purge had to cobble together a new lightsaber out of pieces, parts, and you know, maybe they're on some backwater planet where there's not a lot of technology and they had one crystal and some junk to make it out of. So there's one. And then a shameless use of zip ties for this colored detail. I just thought it was interesting to add that weird touch to it. And the further you get away from it, the more, you know, it just kind of looks like a ribbon detail around there for whatever reason. So I'm using it, of course, because if you look closer, there's these tiny little screws holding everything in, which is really crude and silly. But I love it. I think it's a pretty cool little rig. I could possibly put a battery and blade in this one. It does have some space for that, and definitely room to poke some wire through. So it's a potential. And we're gonna hang it back up because that's what we do. I have this giant wall back here where you can kind of see a couple of them hanging here. So I'm just taking them down. Let's go on the far left. This one's real heavy. Okay. Alright, this one's pretty heavy. Here's, you can see a lot of everything from napkin rings. A lot of these Allen boats show up. This black material you'll see on some of these, this is from a floor lamp. Usually 3 2-foot pieces of metal that screw together, and then the lamp points up at the ceiling, and you know, if you don't get the right one, it'll burn up, and if you touch the bulb with your skin and get the alkaline off your fingers on it, it'll blow up the bulb. So you gotta touch it with a Kleenex when you put it in. And everybody throws them out because after you change your first bulb, it never goes right because the bulbs are really finicky. So I just take them out of the garbage and tear them apart and cut them down because they're the perfect width for doing some saber crafting. And this one's got some strange painted detail on it. It was kind of supposed to represent, was another napkin ring I thought was an interesting detail to start with. This one was kind of supposed to represent a character I was working on. Kind of thought I kind of smaller hand, smaller profile person would wield something like that. It's a little bit shorter than some of them. Whereas the ones I make for myself have a tendency to be a little longer. So let's put this one up on the rack. Let's bring another one down. Here's a nice style that's really easy to make if you have access to a hardware store. That is a sink tube, right? And it just has kind of like a Kanan Jarrus kind of look to it. And yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of them. You'll see a couple more that are like this. It's a great spot for a button to go there. Typically what I'll do is I'll cut this down with the Dremel, put a piece of tape around that, draw a nice clean line, and I'll Dremel that straight off and sand it flat, and then put the button in there. That way it doesn't stick out so much. And then this has got this interesting, and it's got this detail here. It's a little bit, I forget what that's from, napkin ring or something maybe, I can't remember. The detail's out of it, so it's got this kind of recessed area. So I thought about maybe filling that with some vertical pieces maybe just some cut pieces of plastic to give it some more detail and to cut down on the sharp edge there. But there's another one, and then this is a curling iron thing that I bash every once in a while into. You'll see another couple of those. You may have already seen one, I don't know. Let's go to another unfinished one. A lot of these are unfinished. I get them to a certain point and then I just stop until I'm inspired to take one to the next level. This one, it's got some things just sort of roughly bashed into place. Of course, the end of it's not really on there. It's just kind of hanging. And I'm using these, using a dowel rod to bulk this together. And that's eventually going to get replaced with a piece of metal that's that same outer diameter. A lot of this came from some interesting stuff. There's another napkin ring. Napkin rings are king in this world of saber building, kit bashing. Interesting little handle thing that just looks right. It looks like it might be the, you know, the thing that that's where it turns on and off with. And then a nice little detail I kind of built here with the end. Yeah, some details. I'm not really sure where all that came from. Like a lot of kit bashing, a lot of getting things out of a bin at a resale shop. That looks round and saber kind of looking. And yeah, some of this is really crude. Like this tape that's on here. This is literally just some layered up masking tape to, is it masking tape or, yeah, it is masking tape. It's hard to tell sometimes whether it's masking tape or PVC, because I often will use PVC and shave it down on the outside edge to make something fit right. It's a nice collaring type material, but yeah, it's another one. No, you know, no power and no lights and no flashy blade or anything yet. Okay, so let's go to the middle rack. And this one, another sink tube design. This one has some outer cowling that I cut out of, that's got some customizing because I've heated up and bent and embossed so that you can see how it rides up around those threads and finishes all that detail. And there's a little detail around here that kind of hides the blunt edge of that down in there. And of course, this has got a click button already installed. It's like, look inside there, the wires are hanging down. And it's got this kind of deal on the back, this kind of deal that you can see how the wiper blades fit in there. They're very difficult to get in there sometimes. They pop out. But it might take me like half a day to get this thing all to fit in there the way it's supposed to, so I'll just put it back on the shelf and leave it as is. But yeah, this one at one time did have a battery hanging inside of here, and I had it hooked up to my blade kit, and I had the emitter mounted in here, and it was kind of cool, but I just I couldn't find a way to get like any of the measurements for the online rechargeable batteries. There's just still not quite enough room to fit that in there. So now this one's extremely lightweight because it's almost completely hollow. You can see straight through. See that? Now these details here, I can take those bolts out probably and cut them down and make them shorter so it doesn't eat up so much space, which I probably will do eventually. But this is meant to be based on Vader's Empire Strikes Back hilt. That's the actual Vader front end from somebody's resin mold kit they sold on eBay and some oddball pieces. And I just bashed it together with some silver pieces and some knobs that screw in. And I like the red. And then I'm using like yet another napkin ring to serve as a center detail, which I eventually will remove and replace with a better piece of material. But for now, that does a good job holding that together. And then this is the right size to be able to mount a battery and like power and sound and everything into. So that's what this is probably going to end up becoming somewhere down the road when I decide to sink some some dollars into each one of these. I'll pick one and start with a kit for each one of them as I finish them all out and make them lightsabery with some blades and stuff, and some, at least a light to take my one blade and move it between sabers at least. But yeah, okay, so that's another style, and these are all kind of the Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker kind of looking style hilt that everyone's familiar with. I just liked the red anodized look of it, so and now I have a kit that I use, a vinyl template that I put on the front end of these sink tubes. This is another, I think, an 1.5 or 2 inch sink tube. I'm not sure top of my head which one it is right now. I think it's the 2 inch. But these are actual T-track I bought from a saber supply company. I don't remember which now, probably off of eBay somewhere. I make a lot of these guys just by hand, using some flashing from the hardware Home Depot area, and I'll make these bits that are like the Graflex coupler that holds the things together. This particular saber is all one piece, so it doesn't have any joining together in the middle. It's all one piece of tubing. So this one's, out of all those ones I've showed you so far, this is probably the most likely style to get guts and everything installed into it, because there's plenty of room to do what I want to do for the most part on one like this. And like I said, I've got a template that I use for cutting the front end, and this one might not be exact A New Hope. This is maybe just a little bit off shot from it, but you know, it's meant to be a little bit different. And sorry about how the way I have to do this. I have another one made out of the floor lamp stuff I'm going to grab off the rack. I know this is a horrible way to do the video, but this is, I'm sitting on my bed, and this is the wall behind my bed where I keep my sabers, my blasters that I build, and all that kind of stuff. My walking stick up there, you can see the green line. That's actually a walking stick I built after seeing Rogue One. The one character had the staff. I kind of thought it was interesting, so I made a walking stick out of that. Okay, so this one, floor lamp, cut on an angle, where the floor lamps join together, the tubing, there's this band here. So I'm using that literally to keep these two pieces together, but the way that's built is this unscrews. So you can put all your switches, LED lights, and your emitter and everything in there, and your blade kit in the front end of this, and then just leave your wire lead hanging loose, maybe like bolt it to the side or something with something, but that way you can literally like plug in your battery and power and everything on this side, and by unscrewing that you can do a quick disconnect and charge your battery or replace the battery on the fly, or change the entire sound module if you wanted to, whatever you wanted. You know, it's kind of like modular. So as we get closer to this direction on my wall, we get closer to the ones that are more ready for guts to go into, whereas the rest of them are kind of more just a prop display or hanging on your belt for cosplay. But this one, this is definitely something that is designed to eventually have some guts in it. But it doesn't have any details, so it doesn't have much grip, so it's very cumbersome to try to wield as a hilt, because the less detail there is to it, the less things you actually have to grip with. So it becomes very slippery and cumbersome. You can't. It's a lot easier to balance it when you know where the middle of it is, and you feel where the buttons are. Your nerves feel that and pick up on it, and the rest of your body will tell you where to swing it and how to turtle it around and all that. But yeah, this one is very very rudimentary. It's literally 3 pieces. It's this, that, and that. It's 3 pieces of material that make that right now. But it's got quite a lightsabery look already, and it's like almost too clean. There's like no detail whatsoever on this. It's just basically a bulk substrate right now. But it's hollow, and it's very susceptible to becoming a saber, so I think that's going to get some kind of a red blade. Very Sithy. Now we're going to another very similar style. And we're almost done, too, with these sabers. This one is also made out of sink tube material. And I'm working on how to finish this out. This one has these pieces. They were from bass guitar tuners, and I only had 3 of them, so I just used those because they were old, nasty tuners that weren't really worth trying to salvage for anything. So I have some detail drawn in on Sharpie that I plan on doing some relief cuts eventually. Because if you take this copper and sand it down, you get some real shiny detail out of it. So this one has a thin, a copper lining, some copper tube lining. Yeah, and I know we're probably looking at about $50 or more worth of metal right here just because it's that copper. I bought a giant chunk of copper to cut down and make stuff out of because it was the outer diameter fits the inner diameter, so I'm able to layer these 2 pieces of material up with very little manipulation. So the plan is I wanted to have this 2-tone metallic in the grip of this. So these are actually getting cut out even more. So on the inside of that, there'll be a thin silver wall on the very inside of that in most of the spots. Probably not down in this area where the power and stuff will need to be, because it'll have to be kind of in the middle here somewhere, with a switch being up here and the emitter all being up tight into this area, so there'll be plenty of room for the battery there. But yeah, it's another interesting look. It's a longer sword, so like me being 6'2", having a longer hilt and a longer blade is probably going to happen on most of the ones that I would use for myself. And it's pretty hollow in there, so this is very susceptible to being finished out with a kit somewhere down the line. Okay, we're getting down to the very last one. And this one, I think this one is going to be my favorite out of all when I get done with it, because it is hollow. It's got a small little pinhole in the joining area there where it can go through to the back end. And then this thing, I'll probably put some very subtle relief cuts in this ball end at the back of it to allow for the sound to reverberate and escape from it. Otherwise, it's going to be very muffled sounding. But it's got some tiny little holes in it for breathing already. I'm leaving that the way it is. Okay, this was like part of a curling iron. So on all this metal, this feels very balanced out of all of them. This is feeling the most balanced, the less rickety, and this is probably going to become my main hilt eventually. Yeah, for sure, because I really, really like that, all that silver on silver. And as soon as I add some grips to the back end of it, and I put a power button right here in the middle, and some more, my grips will be kind of in line with this, and in between where these holes are. I mean, it's got lots of room for greebling up and detailing out. And like I said, with some relief cuts to let the sound come out the back end of it. The middle of that will bulk up with some grip handles. And then up here, we have the button to turn it on and off. We're going to have the emitter mounted right here. So we'll have some blackness, blunt, coming out the very front of it where the blade goes in. And yeah, and that, it won't take much to finish that out. Basically, putting the electronic kit into this and making those handful of relief cuts, it's going to do most of the work for making this thing come alive. And I kind of feel like adding the blade and emitter and electronics is going to be what makes most of them come alive, that are able to become, more than just a shelf candy. But, there's nothing wrong with shelf candy. That's precisely why I still have a Phantom Menace Droids blaster hanging up there, because if it wasn't for this little red bit up front, it looks pretty darn real. So eventually that red bit's going to get taken off and painted or replaced with something not so silly looking. Because I've got the 1970s issue Imperial Blaster, and outside of the fact it's got that yellow on the inside, when this thing's on, that actually spins in a circle and makes it do stuff. But this is mine from the 1970s. I actually found this hanging in a tree, and it's from the original line that had the yellow and black. And when it went to Empire Strikes Back, that went to red, and eventually this tip became red. And in the 90s, they added a lot of red to the trigger and a red to the tip and the red on the inside here. And then it looked too much like a real firearm, so they started making these things orange and green and white. And I have a couple more out in the garage in a box with some plastic lightsaber hilts that are the toy hilts and toy pistols that are of the silly colors, the oranges, whites, and one's even like tiger stripe looking. They did anything to make it look not like a weapon by keeping the same mold. But and then in the garage, in my kit bashing stuff, with all the lightsabers and stuff I'm still working on out there, there is a metal version of this that is all hand built, all hand carved by me, with a real pistol grip and all that I'm working on. And I think I'm working on the pack section here and the scope, and I had to set it aside because I just needed to set it aside and work on it at a later time, which I'm about ready to go back out there and do some work on it this spring. So anyway, that's where we're at with my wall of sabers. Let me put that back up on the wall where it belongs, and I'll put this one away, and I'll give you one quick look at that. That is a really cool looking one. Now, I know that, and sometimes people see that and they think certain things, so get that out of your mind. That's not what it is. It's a lightsaber hilt, and it's going to be pretty badass. And that's it for today's video. I just wanted to bring those out and show them off really quick. It's about a half-hour video. I'll find out how to get this back up there where it belongs. And yeah, that's it. Have a cup of coffee, build yourself a lightsaber. Happy Saturday.